Welcome to A Knight's Respite, the podcast where Sir Lao Tzu and St. Godric take a break from their duties as knights to share their passion for LARPing and Renaissance festivals. Join us as we explore the world of medieval reenactment, discuss the latest trends in LARPing, and share tips and tricks for making the most of your Renaissance festival experience. Whether you're a seasoned knight or a curious onlooker, A Knight's Respite is the perfect place to discover the magic of medieval times. So grab your sword and shield and let's embark on this journey together. This is A Knight's Respite. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of A Knight's Respite, a podcast all about LARP, Renaissance fairs, and everything adjacent. I'm St. Godric. This is my good friend, Sir Lao Tzu. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. A little bit sore from a long day of kind of climbing, going to the gym, but overall pretty good.
Yeah, this dude's a crazy man over here. He goes, he's like, yeah, I'm climbing today, and I'm going to run, and I'm going to do CrossFit, and dude, you do more in one evening than I do in a week.
Well, it's all terrible, but I don't know. You just got to go out there and get the reps in and experience it, and I don't know, feels good.
Yeah, somehow I'm still a better fighter than you, and I don't do any of that stuff. So today's topic is one that's very near and dear to our hearts, and it is going to be a more new player friendly. Maybe you're haven't been to an event yet. You've been playing at a local chapter, a local group of your LARP, and you're getting ready to head to your first event. So today we're talking about things that we wish we would have known before we went to the first event, or like lessons we learned. And so I was talking to Lao Tzu about this beforehand, and it's been a long time since my first event. So I'm trying to remember back. My first event was 2011. It was a bridge. You probably didn't know that date, right?
You started way before I did, about 4 or 5 years before I did.
Yeah, you said 3 years, and I was like, yeah, it's close enough. So yeah, I started in 2011, and my first event was a Bridge Wars, which is a very competitive game. And this would have been, 3 Bridge Wars sites ago. Wow. So, I mean, it was a long time ago. And I show up, I'm an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid at the time, right? No idea. Only been at my local group of like 15 people. Never seen anything more than that. And our park was relatively new. We had only been a park. We'd only been a chapter for a year, maybe. And so completely green, right? I show up for a 3-day camping LARP event with my single sword, my small shield, my single tabard that was made out of a pillowcase that I had cut open and hand sewn trim on. It was red with silver trim. I was very proud of that piece of garb. Wore just that. I had 2 pairs of shorts and a pair of Toms were my shoes that I was fighting in. My $20 Walmart tent and a bag of chips. And I was going off to my first event. But man, I had so much fun and learned so many things. And so today, this podcast, we're going to go through and just kind of spitball a little bit, go back and forth between the things that because we all have fun. We love our first events, hopefully. But to make it so maybe you can prep a little bit better, know what you're getting yourself into, so that way you can go and have more fun. Yeah. So Lao Tzu, give me your first thing. Or how about this? What was your first event?
Yeah. And this does actually lead into the first point. The first event I went to was 2016, affectionately called Heat Keep, because it was somewhere around 230 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit at all times.
It was rough.
Oh my gosh. Like I was not prepared. It was so rough, and we'll get into that in a bit, but it was fun. It really did set the bar high. Same thing. I was not prepared at all. But like finding a little bit of a niche with certain people and finding a niche on certain things to do kind of goes into a long way. And that's really hard. Like in general, I'm pretty introverted. I try really hard at events to kind of be there for people and be present and kind of get out there and do things. But naturally I'm an introvert, and that can be hard to meet new people. And one way to kind of remedy that a little bit is to actually do a little bit of research before your event. And this isn't just Amtgard, this isn't just like Bell or something. It's any LARPing event, whether it's Boffer Combat or SCA, wearing real armor, or just a parlor LARP. Like it applies to all different areas of the LARPing world. And that's doing research.
You got to know your rule set.
Yeah, 100%. And that's just functionally how to interact with people and how to kind of be at home at the game. But even further than that is figuring out what actually is going on at the event before it's happening, so that you can kind of have a little bit of a plan. You don't have to really like make an itemized list. Maybe you're like that. I'm not a type A personality. I'm the opposite of that. But some people might be, and you can really make a kind of like itinerary on how you're going to go about the event, and ways that you can find those opportunities is by researching the event beforehand, specifically looking at the different scheduled events, whether that's actual like fighting, battle games, things like that, or like different like crafting teaching sessions, or like panels with some of the big names in your group, in your area, your kingdom, whatever. So like finding those particular events can go a real long way, especially on the crafting side. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. And if you're a new player and you show up, a lot of events, not all, but a lot of events will have a specific new player. Hey, if this is your first event, come and spend 20 to 30 minutes with us, and we're going to explain what's going on. Some events call this a briefing. Some events it's newbie 101. There are a few different names that you'll see for this. I highly recommend, if your event has one of those and you see it on the schedule, go to it. In some events, it's mandatory because they go through safety things. They go through some of those. But even if it's not, it's so valuable, because you'll show up at this event, and I promise you there are going to be things going on that you have no idea what they are, and you wouldn't go to it otherwise. But they'll explain it. Oh, hey, this drum circle. For me, that's not something I particularly want to go to. Like just reading that, but drum circle and Bardic. And there's going to be a food competition going on at the same time, and you get some of the other information around there. So not only are they going to teach you how to play the game, they'll be able to help you know where to camp. They'll know here's what's going to go on. Like that meeting is going to help you a lot with some of the practical questions of where do I park? What do I do? Where are the bathrooms? What do I need to do? What do I need to wear? Those type of things are generally covered in that new player briefing. Yeah. So go to that would be one of my big tips.
Yeah. And what that's really good at is finding these different areas of the event, different areas of the game that you can create an identity. And when I say that, I don't mean like who you are in the game, but like in that 2-hour time spans, like I'm doing this. I'm not just a new player roaming around. I'm not just some rando roaming around trying to meet people, but it gives you like, all right, I'm participating in this. I think just for instance, in our game, Kai does a really good job with a lot of their classes, especially like the glass etching class, which is super cool. If you see that, whenever you're participating in that kind of that teaching event, that crafting event, at that time, like you're a person doing A&S, arts and sciences. You're a person participating in that, and you have that in common with other people that are participating and the person teaching. So like you have a little bit of identity at the time that you can really kind of resonate with other people that give you the chance to kind of, I don't know, meet new people. If it's your first event, a lot of times you'll have friends going at the same event that you knew back home, but they could be miles away. They could be doing their own thing. You can't always necessarily rely on having that constant, companion the whole time. Hopefully you do. Hopefully your friend helps you out with that, but you can't. Not everyone can rely on that, at least. So
yeah, when you get there, I'm going to spend just a moment talking about all of the different types of things that you generally can do. because I know for me that was overwhelming. So our game, the main game that we play is Amtgard. It is a very battle heavy, combat oriented LARP with a lot of spells and like D&D-esque type of things thrown in. So if you want to play the actual game, there are going to be battle games going on throughout the whole weekend. You can find that on the schedule. You'll also find a lot of times there will be different tournaments going on. You can participate in these if you want. Even if you don't want to fight, you can go watch the tournament or go see what the ANS, the arts and science stuff that's going on. There's also going to be classes, which is like what Lao Tzu was saying. One of my favorite parts, go and learn a new skill. This can be glass etching. This can be belt weaving. This can be fighting 101. This can be a particular aspect of fighting. Hey, I'm trying to get better at sword and board, and you have sword and shield. And so like you could do classes. They also, a lot of LARPs will have like an in-character role play area where you can go and everybody who's hanging out in that area is going to be in character. And that's a fun way to interact with people and make friends if that's something that you think would be fun. A lot of times there are quests going on and there are quest givers, and you can go and get a quest, and some of them are just really random fetch quests like in video games, but then some of them are weekend long quests that you got to go and do a bunch of stuff. What can you think of? Those are the main things I can think of. Is there anything I'm missing?
No, I mean, that's big, and every event's going to be a little bit different, but finding kind of what you're comfortable with. So I'm thinking back to Heat Keep. Like, I wasn't super comfortable joining a crafting class. More just out of shyness than anything. I was very comfortable jumping on the battlefield. And I think you hit a really good point, which is kind of looking at the questing thing. That's not generally my favorite thing to do. I do it and have fun. But I was able to be put in a group with people that I've never met before, never talked to before, but for an hour or 2 hours, something like that, we were a team. So for the rest of the event, it's like, oh, hey, I remember like Ariel and Fenrir were on my team. I was like, hey, Finn, how's it going? So I had someone to talk to and had a kind of a group activity, a communal activity that we had and shared that. So they can really give you a way to connect with people if you're a little bit more on the shy side or don't know how to like make those connections with people. So participating in these events can go a long way. We spend a good time on that. Another thing that you should probably, and this I guess is in a similar vein, probably expect and prepare beforehand, is really paying attention to the weather. And that's when I keep saying heat keep. I was not ready. I was not ready with the amount of water. I was not ready with enough sunscreen. I was not ready for a lot of like refilling with electrolytes and things like that. I was dying the whole event. Had a blast. But I mean, that's something you have to look at. Is like, it may be heat keep, it may be frozen event or something like that. So like actually preparing for this goes a long way. Yeah, go ahead, Godfrey.
Let me tell you about the first winter event I went to. It was terrible because the event was fun. I was not prepared. I'm thinking, naive 19-year-old kid. I wasn't a big camper growing up. We never really camped. I started camping for LARP. Yeah. I show up. It's me and one of my buddies, Ajax. We had a great time. No one else from our park was really there. We weren't in fighting companies yet. We weren't in any guilds yet. I mean, it was just he and I. No idea what's going on, right? In a very cheap, uninsulated sleeping bag. In a very, not on an air mattress, not off the ground, not in, and I'm there. I've got my guard pants on. I've got a layer of sweatpants underneath it, a sweatshirt, and one basic tunic. No hats, no gloves, no multiple socks. I didn't know we needed to bring cash for firewood. I thought I could pay with my debit card for the firewood. Couldn't do that. So we end up having to run into town to get cash at the ATM. We come back. We, throw all this, the fire. We finally get a fire going. We go to bed. We wake up at 3 a.m, shivering cold, have to go and get so not only is it bring extra water, bring sunscreen in the very hot, but man, make sure you are insulated and have more layers than what you need in the wintertime, because it can be rough.
Yes, and that's always the case. I mean, hopefully the weather's just lovely and great the first time you go, and sometimes it might be, especially in a spring event in the Midwest. But I don't know. I always think of the weather being 10, 20% hotter or colder than what you expect, and bring double the amount of clothes than what you think you need, because you're going to be sweating through it and you don't want to be nasty the whole time, or you may be freezing the whole time. So, and especially if you're sweating after going out and fighting. So the weather, I don't know, it's maybe not the most glamorous thing to talk about, but preparing for that can go a long way for enjoying your first event. And also figuring out how you're going to get out of the elements can go a long way. You kind of mentioned about that cheap Walmart tent. That's better than a lot of people. You don't want to be sleeping in a porta potty or something like that. I remember there was an event that I just brought a hammock because I thought the weather was going to be nice. This was, oh man, I think I lied. The first Kingdom event I went to was Guild Wars, which was a complete role-playing event. But the first big Kingdom event was Keep. So we'll put a little asterisk on that. But all I had was a camping hammock, and it got real cold that night. I mean, I'm going to exaggerate and say it was -4 degrees whenever it was probably only 42. But I was not prepared for that in the event. And I actually went. Man,
42 in a hammock is cold.
You're telling me. So I actually went to my car, which I had a laundry basket in, and just poured my laundry over top of me. So I had some sort of insulation. And I mean, let's learn, man. You figure this stuff out. So I don't know, being prepared for the unexpected, and understanding that temperature gradients are kind of a pretty big deal. And there's, whenever you're out, especially in an event that is kind of further away, that there is going to be some challenges and some differences there, that maybe you don't have access to the same amenities like air conditioning or heat that you would normally expect, kind of just in general. So being able to be a little self-sufficient there can go a long way, even if you don't need it.
Well, and make sure, if you think you're going to be there for 3 days, bring 6 outfits. If you think it's, you need 2 sweatshirts, bring 3. I mean, it's always better to have way more than what you need and keep it in your car than to be sitting there shivering, or on the opposite end. I remember my first keep, it was not Heat Keep, the one that Lao-Tzu was referencing, but my first keep, it was a 5 or 6 day event, and I came with 3 tunics. I'm like, oh, that's fine. Man, there's nothing worse than putting on a sweaty tunic, and it's been 2 or 3 days since you wore it last. You think it's going to be dry. It's not, because it's 100% humidity in the Midwest when at this event. And it was cotton. I hadn't gotten into linen yet, right? And so you put this thing back on, and it's just, it was gross. It was not comfortable. Make sure you bring more than what you need. And if you don't need it, cool.
Just like putting on wet swim trunks, except funky. And you cannot bring enough pairs of socks. It doesn't matter the event. Correct. It could be perfect.
Correct. It doesn't matter the season. Yeah.
Changing your socks feels fantastic, and you should bring just boxes of them, because it just works out. And bringing tights, that can be super handy, both in the heat and the cold. So just things like that can be a real quality of life.
People sleep on the tights, dude. So my wife was really big in the LuLaRoe type of legging type of stuff, and I looked and looked and looked, and finally there was 2 pairs of my fighting company colors, and I'm like, I got those. Man, in the wintertime, those are fantastic, because you can wear them under just a normal pair of guard pants, and they don't show a whole lot. It's not like a pair of sweatpants or something that's going to make you look like. You invest in a good pair of thermal underwear or tights or what. They'll go useful.
I usually bring 1 or 2 fresh pair that I've never worn before to events. And you may find that you all of a sudden someone needs a new sword cover. Don't use your used tights, because that's gross. But cut off a leg of that fresh pair, and there you go, new sword cover. That actually happened at Atreides Knighting. He got a really nice pole arm, but it didn't have a cover on it yet. So I just went up, got that $2 pair of tights that I just had in my bag still in the case, and just cut off a leg and we put it over there and was able to use it at the event. So it was pretty neat. And
question for you.
Okay.
How much water do you bring per day for an event?
Never enough.
Or how much water should you bring?
Never enough. Like pallets. So, well, it'd be nice if you can bring jugs and things like that, so you're not having the single-use plastic. That's definitely preferable. But if the only alternative is to bring a big crate full of water bottles, like, do it. Bring Gatorade coolers full of water. Like, you can never bring enough water or Powerades, because you're going to be, especially in these summer events, losing electrolytes, and you want to be able to refuel that. And always take advantage of the water given at events, because you never know whenever you're going to run out and you're going to be dehydrated. It's so easy to kind of forget that, isn't it? Like, it's like, oh man, I haven't drank water in an hour or two. And whenever you're out there running and sweating, it takes a toll.
Yep. My go-to is a gallon per day. And I almost never actually finished that, but at Heat Keep I did. Like, Heat Keep was rough.
Yeah. And that can go a long way into kind of the preparedness on weather. So one thing I do want to kind of talk about, and this is for Heat Keep, and another way to kind of interact with people and like have I'll say a purpose. So like I said, I'm naturally pretty shy, especially whenever I was new to the game. And I didn't have anything to do. I didn't look at the event, or didn't know really how to interact on kind of those kind of big kingdom levels. I just didn't know anything. But some people asked me to go. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll go. And like, to this day, I still thank one of the players in our game, Skiffy, who really gave me an identity in the game, which was like opportunities to volunteer. I didn't have any sort of direction or ways to meet people that well. Even the people I went with, I didn't know super well, and like who I was camping with. And I'm, like I said, I'm shy, so I had a hard time with that. But whenever you're volunteering, like you have something that you're doing. You have a purpose. For me, I did a lot of the crying whenever it was like food and things like that, just walking around site yelling, like spaghetti in 20 minutes or whatever. But also just like setting up lighting, setting up different, like if your event has like a court or some sort of big ceremony, that takes a lot of setting up, and a way to feel valued and feel purposeful is to jump on these volunteer opportunities. And it's a way to meet people that like they're wanting to interact with you, whether it's being at the gate, like interacting with people as they come in. You're going to see every single person and talk to every single person that's there, which might make it a little bit easier for you down the road to like talk on the battlefield or like group up with each other. So volunteering can go a real long way for we'll say a self-serving side of things, to give yourself a lot of comfort and a lot of direction and motivation and ways to interact with people in the game, whatever LARP you're doing. And it's also just good for running the event. Like, that goes a long way to have people that are ready and willing to volunteer. So that's something I can recommend 10 times over.
Well, and I would suggest, if this is your first event and you want to do some service and you want to get connected, there are a couple of different areas that you can serve in that are going to be fun, but are also going to put you in contact with a lot of different people, which is generally a good thing. So what Sam was saying, or Lao Tzu was saying here, the sitting a gate shift. Generally, they're 2 or 4 hour gate shifts, and everybody who comes through, you're going to, take their money in, tell them where to go, give them their wristband, and send them on their way. Get to meet a lot of people. In the Society for Creative Anachronism, they have the SCA. They have that also. But one of the ones that I think that I love, the King and the Queen have essentially retainers, and you can volunteer because the King and the Queen have to be present in one particular area for their courtly duties. And so they can't leave to go do stuff. And so you're their retainer for 4 hours, or their attendant for 4 hours. And hey, can you go grab such and such? I need to give them an award. And you go and find them, and the king requests the presence of, or like, hey, they just need some water. Can you go and get, but you not only do you get to meet, the the king and the queen, the big ups, like that's pretty cool. But then you also get to be a helpful part and go and meet a lot of people. And so if you can plug yourself into these service opportunities that are going to put you in front of a lot of people, I think that's a pretty good thing to do.
Yeah, and that's true. And just not even like SCA, but across the board. I mean, that was my experience in my LARP was I would find skiffies like, hey, what can I do to help? And sometimes it was just like go get water, but that gave me something to do, and it made me feel valued. And like she wasn't queen at the time or anything, but as the person running the event, and that feels good to help that person out, and they definitely appreciate it. So that can go a real long way on keeping yourself busy and keeping yourself occupied and like having something like a drive. But on the flip side of that, you really have to be able to refill your cup. You have to sometimes take some downtime for yourself, especially if you're kind of an introvert like me and kind of shy. Like you gotta rest a little bit, whether it's going to town or whatever. Like I think your first event, you ran into that issue a lot. You kind of ran out of steam, didn't you?
Yeah. So I am an extrovert, and generally I don't, get exhausted or I don't get anxious around people or anything like that. I love to talk to everybody and I'll chat for as long as you want to chat.
Noticed.
Generally, I know. My first keep that I went to was my first 1,000-person plus event, and I was overwhelmed. I didn't know that many people, had no idea what was going on. I was still new to AmpGuard, so I wasn't super comfortable jumping into the battle games because I felt that Keep in particular is a fighting company based event for the most part. And so I wasn't a part of one of those. I didn't know the rules.
Which isn't true, but that's how you felt. Yeah.
That's how I felt. Yeah. And so I go and I remember just having to go and sit in my car and turn the AC on and turn music on and just decompress for 20 or 30 minutes. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Something I always try and tell people, when you're out here, you're paying to be here. You're on vacation. Like do what it is that brings you joy. If bringing you joy is fighting for 24 hours, well, don't do it for 24. You'll hurt yourself. But
good catch.
If what brings you joy is the fighting aspect of the game, go and do as much of that as you want. If fighting sounds terrible to you and you're just there for the social aspect and that's what's fun for you, man, go and do that. Do the things that bring you joy and don't feel bad. If you need to take a step back and recharge, don't feel bad. If I'm not a big fan of Night Quest. That's not super fun for me. I'm not going to, diss on anybody who enjoys that, but that's just not how I'm going to spend my time. Be willing to say, no, I'm good. Right. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to relax. I'm going to do, you paid to be there. You're at an event. Enjoy yourself, have some fun.
Yeah. And I think you kind of hit on one point is like, you shouldn't be feeling a lot of fear of missing out. It's really easy to feel that, but if you are kind of running yourself ragged, that it's going to be worse than missing out if every single thing you do after that, you're just so tired and can't handle it. And for me, like that was always going in town and like going to a fast food joint and just picking out on some food. One, it was just good for like sustaining yourself, but like I would just put on normal clothes because I didn't want to be out. I'm fine with it now, but like at the time I didn't want to be out in kind of nerd clothes out in the middle of town. So just being able to sit and be by myself for a little bit in the cool, eat a lot of food that I liked, went a long way for recharging those batteries. Yeah,
for sure. You'll find the more that you go and camp and the more that you LARP, there will be certain things that you do that, like what Lao Tzu said, fills your cup or recharges your battery while you're out there. And especially at the longer events, you need that. And one of the things for us, we can do a whole episode on the Picky Eaters Club. Lao Tzu and I are both fairly picky eaters. And so there would be we would look at the menu for the day and we just didn't like what it was. And so we would go, and it was a great time for us to hang out with each other and just kind of catch up, sit in the AC, go into town, use clean restrooms, eat good food, and just relax a little bit because it can be overwhelming, especially when you're new. And heck, I've been LARPing since 2010, 2011, and I still do this every event. So don't feel bad when you're at your first event. If you get overwhelmed and need to relax, go relax.
100%.
It's fine.
Yeah, well, I think we're kind of running in on our time. Godric gets mad at me if I sit and talk too long, so we'll be cognizant of the time for us. So you want to go ahead and lead us out?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, thank you so much for making it to the end of the second episode of A Night's Respite. We talked about things that we wish we would have known or key lessons we took away from our first event. If you have any ideas for topics that you'd like to see us chat about, I should probably look at the camera. If you have any ideas for topics that you'd like for us to chat about, feel free, drop those down in the description or in the comments below. We read and do reply to all of those. So hit that like button if you got a lot of if you got any enjoyment or learned something new out of this content. We really appreciate y'all. I'm St. Godric. That's Sir Lao Tzu. We'll see you next time.
See you, friends.